What's up everyone, welcome back to Saint Seiya Awakening and a new character review. Last Wednesday we got the 4th Gold Saint with their divine armor, and in this case we have AQUARIUS CAMUS. Now you can probably guess that this guy does fit in pretty well with the Ice Boys, but it's not the only use he has, which is great news for us that don't like control, or don't like it that much. Today we're going to be looking at all of his abilities, his Cosmo, his teams, his different uses, and also his weaknesses in case you're running into him. At the end of the video I also have a very special message that I want to share with you all. Alrighty, so Mr. Divine Cloth AQUARIUS CAMUS is obviously a control unit. It would be very weird for them to design something that has to do with ice and doesn't control. Let's start off by looking at his skills and finding out what makes him different from the previous version. The first one is called the Ultimate Freezing Punch, and it's an individual cosmic type attack that does a little bit of damage but can also apply 2 different statuses, one of which is completely new. The first status is the classic Ice Seal. This is the one that the Ice Boys have always applied, and this thing improves the chances of freezing for the Ice Boys with any attack. This is important to keep in mind because these Ice Seals are going to be critical if we want to freeze with CAMUS. The chance to apply the Ice Seal with the basic starts at only 50% but goes to 100, guaranteed if we take it to level 5. The second status is a completely new one in the game called Frosted. And fortunately for you guys in English, they actually use the same name for all of the skills. In Spanish, it's a complete mess. But anyway, applying this Frosted starts at 50% probability, it goes all the way up to 70, so it's not guaranteed, but it can be improved with status hit. What the Frosted status does is that it's going to remain on the enemy unit. It's going to show up kind of like a little yellow flower on top of them, and also some icicles on their legs. It doesn't do anything the moment that we apply it, but on that enemy's next turn, the enemy will be frozen automatically if one of their allies has not removed this Frosted. And again, this is a completely new mechanic. When we apply it, the enemy's allies are going to have the option to remove it. There's going to be like a blue circle that appears on top of the unit, and if you click on it, that unit that you clicked with is going to sacrifice their turn to remove the Frosted status and allow that ally to move. So it's pretty interesting because it's going to force us to decide whose turn is more important. If the enemy decides to not cleanse that ally, then they're going to lose that unit in their next movement. They'll be frozen automatically. Moving on to the second skill, this one is going to be the Ultimate Aurora Execution. This is going to be an AoE cosmic attack that deals a pretty decent chunk of damage. For the first time for CAMUS alone, the multiplier starts at 220% but goes all the way up to 300, which is not bad. It's not amazing either, but it does have an additional effect that is really strong. If we already have frozen units on the enemy team, then this skill has a chance to turn that regular freeze into divine ice. The divine ice is very similar to the black ice in that it's going to last one more round and it can't be purified. The only exception to that is Lune. Lune can still cleanse it. Now, as you can see if you read the skill carefully, this skill on its own doesn't have a chance to freeze. It only turns regular freeze into divine ice. However, because of the effect of the Ice Seals, which we're going to go back and read, these things give any of the Ice Boys, including Divine CAMUS, a chance to freeze for every stack of Ice Seal. That's going to be 8%, and the maximum we can have is 5, so the theoretical maximum that we can obtain is 40%. Now, even though it doesn't specify it here in this additional description, you can improve the chance to freeze with the Ice Seals equipping status hit. So it's going to be 40% with 5 Ice Seals plus whatever you have in status hit in Cosmo. Oh well, not exactly plus, we know it's a difficult calculation. Anyway, because of that effect of the Ice Seals, this skill on its own does have a chance to freeze. It's not very reliable, the chance is somewhat small even with good status hit, but it can do it. And the best thing is that if it does proc the freeze, it's going to automatically transform that into divine ice. It's like it calculates it in 2 separate steps. First, it figures out if it freezes, and then if it does, it's going to transform it into divine ice, which is really strong when it works. Now, if you are running this guy with the typical Ice Boys or with divine yoga, then obviously your chances to apply this divine ice increase. If you can freeze the unit beforehand, then all you have to worry about is transforming it, not freezing with divine CAMUS. The third skill is one that looks really weird to me in battle. It's called the Ultimate Freezing Coffin, but in this case, instead of freezing an enemy unit, CAMUS freezes himself. Yes, he starts the battle off like a popsicle, completely frozen, and when he's in that state, he cannot be controlled. He also cannot be damaged. If he's already been controlled at the end of the previous turn, then when he reapplies this coffin, he's going to cleanse that control. Now, it sounds super strong, and it actually is, but we have to keep in mind that this only happens in the first 2 rounds of battle. From the 3rd round onwards, this passive does not apply at all. It has no effect whatsoever. So very strong, but it forces us to either kill the enemy quickly or have have it completely frozen so that we don't have to worry about damage. The second effect of the ultimate Coffin is that when CAMUS's turn finally arrives, you know, he's frozen, that Coffin is going to break and it's going to do an AoE attack. Now the Coffin on its own doesn't actually deal any damage. What it does is return the damage that has been applied to it. So while CAMUS is frozen, all of the damage that we do to that Coffin, it's going to be absorbed, kind of like Moose shields, and when the Coffin breaks on CAMUS's turn, it's going to return that damage. The limit on that return is actually pretty insane. On level 5, we can accumulate up to 1600% of CAMUS's cosmic attack, and that is, in a lot of cases, if we can max that, it's a lot of damage, enough to one-shot almost anything. Obviously, you have to accumulate it first, so this is a skill that we're going to see a lot in play with the Golden Duck. He can redirect attacks, force the enemy to attack that Coffin, and then we can return all that damage. Additionally, for every stack of Ice Seal that we have on an enemy unit, we're going to decrease their status resistance and their total damage by a certain percentage. That starts at 5% resistance and 2% damage, and goes all the way up to 10% resistance and 5% damage per seal. Remember, we can have 5. The chances of starting the round as an Ice Coffin also go up, from only 20% to guaranteed 100 on level 5. Now, the cool thing about this Coffin is that it's completely immune to control effects, and that includes hard control, like Pandora's Exile, Cannon's Triangle, Ayako's Fly, all of those things do not apply. What does apply is the Exorcism from the Holy, from the Divine Cow. You can take CAMUS's soul out and apply damage to it, even if he's still inside the Coffin. So, important to keep that in mind because it's a very decent counter. Thanatos' Eye is also a very good counter because that damage is applied after the unit's turn. So, CAMUS is going to be in his Coffin, he's going to come out in round 2, he's going to do an action, and then he takes the hit from the eye. Lastly, we have the ultimate Ice Ring, which is, in my opinion, the most interesting ability. Remember how we can apply this Frosted manually with the first skill? Well, turns out this guy can apply it passively during the first 2 rounds up to 2 enemy units. This is insane because what happens is that at the beginning of the round, the enemy unit moves, and the 2 fastest units, as long as they're faster than CAMUS, are going to automatically acquire that Frosted state after they move. So it doesn't control them in round 1, but they remain frosted. If another ally doesn't cleanse them before their next movement, then they're going to be frozen at the start of round 2, and then they're going to get the status again. So they'll be frozen again at the start of round 3. It's a total of 4 controls with a passive that takes no energy. With skill ups, this thing also goes up to 100%, so it's guaranteed that it's going to happen. The only way to avoid it is with some resistance. Now, the skill very clearly tells us that this can be removed by an ally, so again, we're going to have to choose whose turn is more important. But I really love this skill because it actually frees one of my favorite units to come back into play. I'll tell you about that a little bit later. And that pretty much sums it up. So we're going to have 1 control over here, 2 automatic controls over here, the chance to turn regular ice into divine ice with the second skill and 2 energy, and he also protects himself from pretty much everything for 2 rounds. Now, if you noticed, this passive and this passive both apply the first 2 rounds of battle. After that, his utility goes way down. And when we get to talking about skilling it up, we have quite a bit of complication because he can be used in different ways. The main way, obviously, is going to be as a control unit combined with other ice units so that it can freeze everything permanently forever and ever. There's a second use, though, which is going to be as a counter, as a way to return damage like we do with the classic move. Let's look at that one first then because it's the simpler one. Since we're not going for control, the first skill is going to remain at level 1, the second one is going to remain at level 1 as well, while the third one we're going to want to take to level 5. This is so that we guarantee that he starts as a popsicle. If we're going to go for damage return, we have to make sure he starts this way. So the third one to level 5, and then the fourth one we're going to take to level 2 simply because we need to level up 2 skills to open all the 8 cents. This counter CAMUS is very usable, very decent, very good, and only costs 11 tomes. However, don't think he's ever going to control anything, or not very likely. The second basic CAMUS that we're going to look at is one focused 100% entirely on control. There are 2 skills that do that for us when we're talking about CAMUS alone. It's going to be the first one, where we can apply this frost manually, and the fourth one, where we can apply it automatically. With just these 2 skills, we have 3 controlled units. This control-only CAMUS would have skill 1 on level 3 at least, preferably level 5. The second one, if we're not combining with other Ice Boys, we would leave at 1 because he really only applies 1 Ice Seal, and the only way this is ever going to freeze is with Ice Seal, so we don't have a very good chance of that happening. The third one, for only control, we're going to leave at level 1. Obviously, leveling it up improves our chances of survival, but it's not strictly necessarily for controlling purposes. The fourth one, for this one, we're going to take to 5. We're going to guarantee that these 2 units are controlled, so in total, this control-only CAMUS is going to cost us 20 tomes. 5, 1, 1, 5. Next, we're going to look at a CAMUS that can do a little bit of everything really well. This one would have skill 1 on level 3 to get at least 60% chance to apply this Frosted. It would have skill level 2 on level 3 as well so that we can combine them properly with Ice Boys. Skill 3, we're going to take to 5 to guarantee the Ice Coffin, and skill 4, we already had at 5. This really good CAMUS is going to cost us 26 tomes, which is not terribly horrible, but it doesn't mean you have to stop there. If you are an Ice Boys lover, if you are a competitor in Jameer that needs all of the units really well built, then obviously you're gonna take this to 5555. He is one of those units in the game that if you want to use him fully, he's worth the 40 tomes. For me, not so much because I'm not a big fan of control, so I will probably be leaving him somewhere around here. This is how we're gonna see him in the demonstration today anyway. Over on the 8 cents, CAMUS is a unit that needs a little bit of everything to function in all roles. However, in my opinion, his main role is as a control unit. So we're gonna go with Alpha, which gives us Cosmic Attack and Status Hit, followed by Beta, which gives us HP and Cosmo Attack, then Gamma, which is gonna give us Cosmic Attack, and Lifesteal, which is not incredibly important in him. Remember, he's gonna be in that coffin, so he's gonna be immune to damage during the first 2 rounds. So even if we manage to do a massive amount of damage, he's not gonna have any life to recover. The Cosmic Attack, though, is important to maximize his damage. Delta would be last, and the reason is the one I just mentioned. He's not going to be taking that much damage, and hopefully by round 3 the battle will be almost won. Either everybody will be frozen or everybody will be dead. Moving on to his Cosmo, this is actually a pretty straightforward area. Like we mentioned, he's going to need Status Hit in order to improve his chances of controlling, and he's going to need some Cosmic Attack if we're hoping to do damage. HP and defense are not that important because he's completely protected for 2 rounds. If in round 3 you don't have everything controlled and the enemy is not dead, then you're going to be in some trouble. In the red Cosmo, we really don't have a lot of options. There's nothing here that gives a Status Hit, so we might as well go for damage with Dragon Chant. 2 hits of Cosmic Attack and Cosmic Defense Pierce. In the yellow, he is a very good candidate for Seiya, which is a classic Cosmo. He doesn't need speed because units have to be faster than him in order to be frozen automatically, so it's a great opportunity to put some of these old Seiyas to good use. Anything that has Status Hit and doesn't have speed goes perfectly well on him. Over on the blue, it's going to depend really on what type of sub-attributes you can find in the rest of your Cosmo. If you feel that you have enough Status Hit where you're comfortable, you can sacrifice the boost that you would get from Letter here on the blue and go for damage with Nether. If, however, you don't have good substats and you need to improve this Status Hit number, Letter is going to be your best option. It gives you a really nice boost and it doesn't give you speed, which Lotus does. Lastly, we're going to look at the legendary, and the option, if you like to do damage like I do, is going to be Two-Horn Snake. Not only does it give you a Cosmic Attack boost, but it would also hit any units that already moved harder. This is by far the best Cosmo for slow attackers, but if you want to go with a more tanky option, and keeping in mind that he's really dog slow, then Fuchsia would give you tons of protection. The last option that I'm going to mention, because it's one that's really interesting to me as a kind of way to mess with the enemy, and it's going to be Hyacinth, because remember that when his Ice Coffin breaks, if we're using him with Ice Boys and there's Ice Seals on the field of battle, he's going to reduce the attack of those enemies with Ice Seal. If on top of that we apply Hyacinth, then the damage reduction in total will be ridiculous. Like I said though, I do prefer damage, but I wanted to put it out there because I think it would be a funny way to mess with the enemy. As for substats, we've already mentioned a couple of times that Status Hit is going to be the primary one for control, while Cosmic Attack is going to increase the amount of damage that our Coffin can take and therefore return. Alright, it's time to talk about teams, and I'm pretty sure you can guess which is the first one that we're going to mention. Yes, it's going to be Ice Boys. Yes, I hate them, but I have to talk about them. His regular version, the non-divine, the one that didn't go to university, is a perfect partner. He applies the Ice Seals automatically every time the enemy moves. With a good number of Ice Seals, the chances of us freezing with our second skill and then immediately transforming that into Divine Ice go up. If we freeze with CAMUS beforehand, then the chances are even better. These two alone can pretty much form a complete Ice team. There's really no need to include anybody else. But obviously, if you have the old regular dependable Yoga and you freeze beforehand, then it's GG. Another option is going to be another type of duck, which is the divine one. He applies Ice Seals automatically every 2 turns, so that helps. And he also freezes with his third skill for only 1 energy. This is already a very strong type of control. Divine CAMUS can take advantage of it and improve it. For the damage return team, we're going to use another type of duck, and this time it's going to be gold. With this guy's second skill, we can redirect the enemy's attacks towards Divine CAMUS, force the Coffin to absorb as much damage as possible, and then return it automatically for no energy cost. Remember, when the Coffin breaks, it attacks for free. Divine CAMUS also benefits from double turn mechanics because with his basic, he has a chance to apply Frosted with the first attack, and then if we use the basic again, we can immediately freeze that unit, removing the opportunity for the enemy to cleanse it. You could also apply an Ice Seal and then try your luck with a freeze if you want to play him alone without any other Ice Boys, and he combines well with Hashun because he can use the basic on the first movement and then the strong skill on the second one. We're also going to mention someone that I love dearly but I have never used in the game, which is the classic Ioria. He's always been able to hit incredibly hard when he has control on the enemy team. I'm not sure we're going to be seeing any of him because his problem is actually not the damage, is that he's super squishy. Like most of these gold saints from the first generation, even after their rebirth, they still remain incredibly easy to kill. Now, as for counters, which is very important when talking about the Ice Boys, a lot of them are going to be the classic counters for Ice Boys, starting with Thanatos, who is the counter to pretty much everything that lives in the universe. He is the god of death. He doesn't care if you control him. He's going to hit you whenever he feels like it. As I explained earlier, the eye is also particularly useful because the hit is going to apply after CAMUS comes out of the coffin, so there's no way to prevent it. Units that can cleanse like Arayashiki are also quite powerful because the frosted effect, the one that remains on the enemy and activates later, unfortunately that can be removed. Arayashiki can cleanse it, he can give himself a buff and extra turns. However, be very careful because if you start hitting the enemy while they're in the coffin, CAMUS is going to return all of that damage done to him automatically to your whole team. So yes, it's a counter, but it's also a sort of double-edged sword. The classic Pandora is also particularly strong. If you find a way to cleanse statuses, she's going to be healing constantly, making the enemy team a lot harder to kill. We also have the Divine Cow, which I already mentioned. He can remove CAMUS's soul and apply damage directly to him even if he's in the coffin. This is one of the strongest ways to take care of him. Artemis can also reset him, and this one works pretty strangely because if you remember, when Artemis resets Orphe still retains his first Serenade, the one that he starts the battle with. CAMUS doesn't. When Artemis resets him, he loses the coffin completely. He's going to reacquire it at the start of round 2, but he'll be exposed all of that round 1. Slow attackers are also pretty good against him because anybody with any speed is not going to be able to do damage in the first 2 rounds. Here we have Pisces, also Mew, who just got a cloth repair. It's pretty interesting. I wouldn't say it's completely OP, but it does have its uses. He also can be frozen after his last evolution, so he's a double counter, slow and uncontrollable. Lastly, the biggest weakness is going to be that if you don't manage to do something important in the first 2 rounds, starting in round 3, Divine CAMUS becomes completely vulnerable, and he doesn't have stellar defense stats. If the enemy manages to attack him directly, he is going to die fairly easily. His uses in the game then, we already mentioned, are going to be as a control unit, and he can actually do it alone. Also as a member of the Ice Boys to be super extra disgusting, and a very fun function is the damage return one. It takes some planning, you're also going to have to probably bring the Golden Duck, but when it works, it can be beautiful. I've seen him wipe out entire teams. What we're going to do now is a test, and today we're going to do it in Arena because I haven't had time to do a battle in Galactic Duel. I actually just finished upgrading mine. So we're going to test him in Arena because I want to show you one of the functions that I'm most excited about. As you all know, I love Evil Saga. He's always been one of my favorite units, but ever since the goddess Athena got her rebirth and she's in a lot of teams, Evil Saga is pretty much impossible to use because she's a complete counter. Divine CAMUS solves that problem perfectly because Athena is going to generate her field, and then because she gets a second movement, she's going to be frozen. That means that she can't just basic Saga to spend his counter, and the next unit that attacks is going to die. That's what we're going to try to do today, and hopefully it works. Alright, here we go against Weapon X, and I'm going to use this team that I have on screen right now. Shion and Thanatos simply because they're way too strong. Athena Exclamation is one of my favorite units right now, and we have Doko to provide some energy, Divine CAMUS so that we can use his passive to control this Athena. And this is what I want to show you, and the reason that I decided to finally level up my CAMUS a little bit, I'm very interested in this combination with Evil Saga. Because of CAMUS's passive, this Athena is going to lose her second movement. She's going to activate her field, immediately get frozen, and that means that she can't basic me. This would work the same way in Galactic Duel. The enemy would either have to not activate his field and just basic me with the first movement, or sacrifice the next unit, which is what we're going to do here, right? We're going for this Thanatos, which my Pablito should now hopefully be able to take out. Now, I don't know how smart the AI is, so I'm going to mark Divine Shun, which is what I would do during a real fight. And following up, I am going to perhaps start with... What do we start with? I'm actually not sure what to start with, but maybe Milo doing damage? Nah, let's start with Ayoria. I'm gonna go with Ayoria, and I'm gonna maybe try to... Is she gonna be controlled for next round? No. I'm gonna do this to get the energy reduction. Okay, so I'm opening with Leo to use the energy reduction in the future, not right now. We take 3 hits. This Thanatos... Wait, why did this Thanatos not move? Guys, why is this Thanatos not move? Hello? Excuse me? Sir? Excuse me, sir. Have you heard of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ? Hopefully we can trigger something. I actually don't understand why this Thanatos didn't move. He exercises my Pablo. Oh my god. This cow is very smart. However, this cow is also dead. And Pisces is dead too. And oh my god, I need to kill this Pisces somehow. I'm actually gonna go for this. Just for whatever little bit of damage my Coffin was able to absorb. I need to do the damage. And unfortunately my Pablo moves first. Or no, we kill him with the Yayoi from Thanatos. Here we go. Boom. Explosion. And I'm still questioning why this Thanatos didn't move in the first round. I'm actually not sure why, guys. I confess. But I'm not sure. Wait, why did Thanatos not move? Oh, Jesus! Take that Orphe out. My poor this guy is in range of execution, so I'm gonna hide him. And the paralysis is actually gonna make this Athena lose her turn. She doesn't have enough energy to execute, and she can't use the basic. So that worked out pretty well. I'm gonna protect... No, I can't protect my Pablito because he's exercised. So, you know what I'll do? Is I'm actually gonna prevent this guy from getting any Fury, okay? No more AoEs from him. So we block the Fury, Athena loses her turn because of the paralysis, and she also acquires this state again, right? You see this is the little flower, although they're kind of icy, I don't know. They're yellow flowers to me, that's what they look like, okay? I am going to... Is there anything I need to do here? Actually, I don't think there's much I need to do here, because all that's going to be left after this round is going to be Shun, but he hides it. And Thanatos lost the turn again, guys. Am I going crazy? Did he have the seal beforehand, or didn't he? I don't remember. But fortunately, we have the Athena exclamation, and we can get rid of this Shun for only 1 energy. The boom, bye-bye. That leaves this guy completely exposed, and we can now... I don't know, I think we took an AoE. Maybe let's do this. Oh! And see what time of... Not a lot of damage returned by the Coffin, okay? But we do have the status, so Thanatos is going to be frozen again in round 3. Now, I'm going to try to apply it manually to Athena. That's completely not what I was expecting to happen, okay? There's no mechanic that prevents Athena from staying as a ghost. She just decided to check out. Okay, so all we have to do now is maybe someday kill this Thanatos. He gets frozen by the passive from CAMUS, and something I forgot to mention. If CAMUS dies, but he already has that mark, if he already has the frost applied to an enemy, it doesn't matter if he's dead, the frost will still apply. Okay, so here we finish it with Milo, and that's a GG. GG. And that's gonna be it for today, guys. I hope the review was useful. In summary, Divine CAMUS can be a very strong unit. I like that they gave him the possibility of working by himself. He can freeze up to 3 enemy units without any help at all, and I think that's a plus. You can also use him as a way to return damage, which is a bonus. For me personally, I'm not gonna go all out on him. As you know, I don't like control too much, though I do like the possibility of using Saga. It's a unit that I've had to put on the bench because of Athena's rebirth, but maybe now he'll have a chance to play. Even if the enemy counters you in round 1, they'll be frozen in round 2 and won't be able to do it again. Now, before we leave, what I wanted to share with you guys is the news of this tournament called Athena's Charity Cup, which is going to be taking place this Saturday, December 11th, starting at 12 p.m. American server time. It's going to bring together 16 of the top players in the world for a good cause. That's because throughout the whole transmission, all of the donations, super chats, whatever YouTube pays me, the donations from the players themselves, everything is going to be collected and then sent in a huge donation, a huge transfer to Casa de la Amistad. This translates into the House of Friendship, and it's a non-profit organization based in Mexico that helps kids with cancer and their families. It is an amazing cause. We've been organizing it for about 2 months now, and we're less than a week away from it taking place. I want to invite you to swing by the stream that day, at least for a little bit. There's no obligation to donate. With just your presence there, you can help, because the more viewers we have, the more income that's going to generate from YouTube, and that's more income than I can then donate to Casa de la Amistad. I hope to see you all there, but I'm saying goodbye for today, so if you haven't already, please remember to hit like, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell so you don't miss any videos, and I'll see you guys again very soon. Bye!